You ever notice how Gen X can organize an entire project, solve impossible problems, and stay calm during chaos? But the second someone says, "Let's talk about our feelings," they'd rather jump out a window? It's not a coincidence. There's actual psychology behind why the generation born between 1965 and 1980 treats emotional intimacy like a trapdoor they're always ready to avoid. Here's what happened. Gen X didn't just grow up with absent parents. They grew up learning that needing someone was dangerous. Picture this. You're 9 years old in 1982. You fall off your bike, scrape your knee badly, and you're home alone. No one's coming for 3 more hours. You don't cry because who's going to hear it? You patch yourself up, and something in your brain clicks. The lesson isn't just, "I can handle this," it's, "I have to handle this alone," and that's normal. Research from developmental psychologist Dr. Jean Twenge shows that Gen X reported the lowest levels of emotional support during childhood compared to any generation before or since. But here's the kicker. Their brains adapted. They learned to self-soothe, to compartmentalize pain, to keep moving. Psychologically brilliant for survival, absolutely devastating for intimate relationships. Because when you spend your formative years learning that expressing need equals vulnerability, and vulnerability equals danger, you don't just unlearn that because someone loves you. When a Gen Z's partner says, "I need you to open up," their nervous system hears, "I need you to disarm your only defense system." It feels like being asked to walk into traffic blindfolded. And then there's the divorce factor. Gen X watched their parents' generation break apart at record rates. 50% of their parents' marriages ended. That's not a statistic to them, that's their childhood. They watched love promises shatter. They saw forever become, "Until I meet someone else," or "Until this gets too hard." They learned that people leave, not sometimes, often. So they built what psychologists call preemptive detachment. It's not that they don't feel deeply, they do. It's that they've predecided that it won't last, so they hold a part of themselves back. Always. There's this invisible line they won't cross, not because they don't love you, but because crossing it means handing you the power to destroy them, and their entire childhood taught them never to give anyone that power. Gen X also struggles with what researchers identify as vulnerability hangovers. They'll have one night where they actually open up, share something real, maybe even cry, and then they wake up the next morning flooded with shame and regret. Their brain screams, "You showed weakness, you made yourself a target." So they withdraw, get distant, crack jokes to rebuild that wall. Their partners think they did something wrong. They didn't. Gen X just scared themselves by being honest. Here's the tragedy. Gen X actually craves intimacy more than they'll ever admit. Those late-night conversations, that feeling of being truly known, they want it desperately. But wanting it and trusting it are two completely different things. They're like someone who's starving but convinced the food is poisoned. Therapists working with Gen X clients report the same pattern. They're the most reliable people in crisis. But ask them to sustain emotional availability during calm periods, and they struggle immensely. Because crisis has rules. Intimacy doesn't. Crisis has an endpoint. Intimacy requires sustained vulnerability, and that feels like walking a tightrope that never ends. The generation that taught themselves to need nothing now struggles to admit they need anything. Not because they're cold, because they learned too well that the safest person to count on was yourself. And unlearning survival instincts? That's the hardest work there is. If this resonated, subscribe for more psychology deep dives. Your support means everything.